Rich Andrus here with Menlo Group Commercial Real Estate and Menlo Dental Transitions. Excited to spend some time with you today.
I'm David Haynes with Menlo Dental Transitions. I'm our Vice President of National Practice Sales. So right now is an amazing time to be providing an update just because there's so many headlines and things that are taking place. We have interest rates that have been raised at a historic pace. We've had bank failures. We've had amazing advancements in AI in the last couple of months. And so what we've seen is economic conditions. It's almost, there's too many moving parts. You know, we're not economists. We're not going to be able to predict the future per se, but what we can speak to are some things that we've seen on a transactional basis. Banks are going to be a little bit more conservative. Dentists still have preferred treatment within banks, but we're going to see rates, maybe remain a little bit higher for the end consumer, for the person that's borrowing the money. We're going to see banks that will probably be more conservative through this process. So I don't personally think that what we've seen in the banking industry is necessarily catastrophic, but it does have an impact on the overall market. Other banks take notice, and that's a big deal in the owner-user marketplace. You know, a lot of times we're limited to what the bank can lend, in a practice transition, and so that's a big deal, and not the end of the world, but it is something that we're paying close attention to, and does impact the market.
Yeah, no question that lenders are going to tighten their shoestrings, if you will, right? So they're going to look for better terms, meaning higher interest rates, better terms for them as a lender, but they're also going to look for better borrowers. And in looking for better borrowers, that's where dentists have primarily shined. They've always been the belle of the ball, if you will. Even through the last economic downturn, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, dentists continued to receive access to capital. And I think that's something that just is very unique about the dental world that perhaps you may not know about your industry. Dentists' approval rating is far greater than the majority of other disciplines, if you will. And so that's the good news. There's still access to capital, but those terms are changing, and they'll continue to change as more headlines hit. And I guess it's just a volatile market. I would reach out to your lenders, and you have the contacts. Reach out to them, have good conversations with them. It's actively moving. I got an email yesterday from a lender that's basically said, hey, this is our go-forward status as of now, laying out terms and conditions of kind of where they are based on real estate and practice financing. Had a conversation this morning with another lender. So it's a very active conversation. I'd encourage you to get involved.
So my suggestion is don't try and time the market. We're not economists. You're not an economist. We don't really know what's going to happen, right? And this is going to be true for buyers and sellers. I think from a seller's standpoint, if you're thinking about retirement and you've got good exit options in front of you, you should seriously consider some of those options. And it's impossible to know exactly what's going to happen in 2 to 3 years, like a short-term time frame. If you've got 10 years left to practice, that's a different situation. Most things can resolve themselves in a 10-year time frame. But if you've got health issues or some things that you're concerned about, if you're feeling overworked, I think the majority of the conversations that I have are people that are burned out. They're tired of staffing, dealing with the HR and the staffing elements of the office, and if your practice is in a prime position and you've got time and you've got some more time left to practice, that's okay. There may be some exit options for you that make sense, that give you the ability to work back depending on the size of your practice. So there's things that we can help structure into a deal to make the transition a little easier if you've been thinking about it but aren't quite ready to sell. But my main message is don't wait too late. It's much harder to sell a practice if the practice has been in decline. It's much harder to sell if you've got an injury or illness that's kind of popped up that's that really affects the goodwill, the valuation of the practice. So we want to be involved in those conversations. I think my main message is hey, if this is on your radar in the next, even within 10 years, if this is on your radar, we want to have a conversation to, at minimum, help you plan, put a plan in place to have the practice be on the right path to get the most that we can and give you the right exit, especially if you own your real estate. The key is to be prepared in advance, know what your options are, and pull the trigger when the time is right.
Yeah, I would say, as an industry, dentists have historically, you're very educated. You've done a great job at going to CE events, and you attend CE events, and you go and you get educated very, very well on your craft. Whether it's an implant course or whether it's a all-on-4, whatever it is that you're looking to do in your field of dentistry, you do a great job at being educated. When it comes to the sell or the buy of the practice, we just encourage you to get educated. We're happy to be part of that education process, but we're not alone in the education process. Certainly there's a lot of different places to reach out to and understand how to, for example, tax planning, your CPA, your financial advisors. And we as a group, Menlo Group, we've done a great job at trying to pull in a lot of those advisors and different parties to lead CE events on your behalf. So, get educated, even if it's in the horizon down the road. It doesn't hurt to be educated on what that will look like for you, and don't put your head in the sand. Open your eyes, look and see what that might be for you, what conditions would need to be perfect in order for you to be able to exit, to be able to enter, and don't be scared of that conversation. We'd love to help you with it.
I should add, there are low to no cost options for us to evaluate a practice and give you some of these exit options, right? So it's not particularly hard to do. We're happy to spend some time and get to know you and your practice and take it from there.
I think dental real estate, when we start talking about economic conditions affecting dental real estate, it's really broad. So in the commercial real estate marketplace, the segments are retail, office, industrial, land, right? And so if we were talking specific to a build-to-suit scenario, then we'd really be talking about land. We'd be talking about what it costs to build the building, what it costs to build the tenant improvements and actually come out of the ground and deliver a dental office. That's one side of the economics. And then the other side that's probably a little bit more common is, what does it look like in the current economic environment to go into a retail center versus a medical office building versus an office building? And so let's talk different scenarios. There's a significant trend in dental to be highly visible, high signage, high visibility, great parking. And so you pretty much see a dentist in the majority of retail plazas. So let's talk retail. Retail right now in the Arizona marketplace, Phoenix marketplace, Maricopa County, has less than a 6% vacancy. What that means is there is more demand for product than there is supply. And so obviously more demand, less supply, prices are climbing, and they're climbing exponentially. And so it's not uncommon for us to see a retail plaza with lease rates that are really, really high in comparison to what we have traditionally seen in the dental world. And so they make all of us just gasp a little bit and say, okay, is this the right decision? And so I would just say that, and I have absolutely told clients, dentists, I've told clients that this likely isn't the right location to do a startup into. I think that it's a really difficult place to start, not because of the demographics, but because the economics. You're basically working, and you're going to be sitting in the chair working to pay your landlord. And Menlo Group, we pride ourselves in delivering a service and education that not only gets you into a space, but also helps you thrive in that space and eventually exit that space. We want not only to help you get in, we want to help you exit 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And in order for you to exit profitably, you need to be able to create a revenue for your family. So retail right now, is super tight. And not saying it's non-existent, because there are opportunities. There are locations that we can find a lease rate that doesn't climb so astronomically that it prices you out of the market. So the answer is it just takes time, and we got to just stay vigilant in the search on a retail section. Now let's talk office. And I know that was kind of a long explanation on retail, but let's talk office. Office, you have this, if you will, mass exodus from let's talk really globally. You have a lot of work from home scenarios occurring. And so you have large tenants that used to occupy 100,000 square feet that are reducing their footprint and are now occupying 40, 50,000. And so you have a lot of space being given back to landlords in the office sector. And you have more product today on the marketplace in a sublease scenario where people have obligated themselves and have 2, 3, 4 years left of term and are trying to mitigate that expense on their books. And so there's tons of sublease space in the marketplace. What that's done in office is make office landlords really excited about having a dentist in their plaza. And so the movement that we're seeing is a significant amount of office plazas having a dentist in them. And for the first time, and not just for the first time, but we're seeing a lot of movement where those office locations are trying to get competitive when it comes to the signage and the visibility. And so becoming a little bit more like a retail place, offering the signage, the visibility, the parking that a retail plaza has in the past, yet at office pricing, which is a little bit lower and usually a little bit a different lease structure. So they're out there. There's some really strong, good economic deals to be had in medical office plazas, in the office sector, and even in the retail sector. You just have to be a lot more. You just have to be in the market really heavy in the retail. We're finding them, but they're fewer and further between in the retail market. So that's a long answer to the current economic conditions. Things are changing. I think there's probably a large segment on this call, or I should say on this video, that already has a space. If you already have a property, you're already a dentist, you have a location, you're leasing. If I could say one thing, number one, we need time to work a strategy on your lease renewal. And this is not a marketplace to think to yourself, hey, my lease expires in December of this year. I'll start contacting the landlord or call a broker in October, and we'll be able to punch out the renewal in a couple of months. You've likely gone past your renewal terms, and a dentist that's gone past their option to renew is a dentist that is in an extremely vulnerable position. So please look at your leases, look at your lease dates. When is it that you have to reach out and exercise an option to renew? Do you have an option to renew? All of these are questions that you can send to us. Send us an email, and we will review your lease for free and tell you what dates and timelines you need to reach out to your landlord and exercise an option to renew and set up a good strategy. Dentists that have either A, gone into a position where their options to renew have expired, or B, don't have an option to renew, are in a very vulnerable place. We're in a climbing market, lease rates are going up, and candidly, the landlords are going to take advantage of that scenario, and your lease is going to escalate exponentially.
And it really affects our ability to transition to practice. If you own your practice and you're thinking about exiting, the lease is sometimes an afterthought for the dentist. It's not always brought to the forefront, or it's not always the top concern. And so, but the lease should be. This is something where you're vulnerable, and your practice value is in some ways tied to that location and the lease that you have. So having lease exposure, greatly affects my ability and our ability to transition. It can affect your valuation. I mean, these are all very relevant things. So it's important to have a professional review the lease, help negotiate the lease, Some people shy away from longer lease terms for various reasons, or they want to keep their options open. But what in my experience, that actually limits their options, right? If they're always running on a short-term lease, there's always this exposure that's kind of around the corner, and then an unknown as to what does that renewal look like, if there aren't options to extend. I mean, those things are all really important factors as we go to look at transitioning your practice and ultimately the retirement plan. So valuations continue to remain strong. They've been very resilient. We may have seen some softening. I don't know that I have a number or a percentage that I feel confident enough to assign to something. But if you have a prime practice, prime location, and everything, it checks a lot of boxes. If it falls in kind of that quadrant that everybody's looking for, or that most people are looking for, it's going to capture a healthy valuation. The banks are still willing to lend. We talked about some potential softening. They're going to scrutinize the practice. They're going to scrutinize you more maybe than they used to. But if we're talking prime practice, prime opportunity, that valuation still remains fairly strong. If the practice has some hair on it, or if it's in a location that's less desirable, or if there's some weakness within the deal, those opportunities are a little bit softer than the prime opportunities, I'll say. So there are some things that maybe on the fringe that have that get a little bit less love than they used to. But for the most part, there's still limited real estate available, right? If you're going to go and build a practice or start something from scratch, that market remains, and Rich can speak to this more than I can, but that market remains ultra competitive. There's DSO buyers that are crowding the buyer marketplace for those really good practices as well. So if you're talking about a really good opportunity, it's still ultra competitive, and that valuation remains strong. Regarding DSO valuations, the bigger your practice is, it's almost like the faster you go faster. If you have a bigger practice, it's going to capture an even potentially bigger multiple in that corporate marketplace. So there's those valuations are still there. The money is still flowing as far as we can see it, and I don't see that necessarily changing anytime soon. It might, some of the conditions might tweak, but I don't see any of that evaporating or adjusting in a major way over the next 6 months, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this is one of those situations that all of us are doing the best we can to be responsive to the market conditions. None of us know what tomorrow brings, but what we can say today is that there's an active market for both buyers, sellers, and lenders, and things are still pushing forward in a very, very active fashion. There is not a massive pullback in the marketplace as one might expect with rising interest rates and uncertainty. There's still a full steam ahead approach on a large portion of, on the majority of all dental transactions. If you own your building, it's just a good idea to always know what it would be worth. I mean, obviously, if you're looking to sell your building, we're happy to do an evaluation. But real estate values have not tanked, if you will, right? And so lots of people think that the marketplace has a lot of uncertainty, and when uncertainty hits, then values decline. And although velocity has slowed on the sales side of things, meaning there's not as many transactions occurring this time today as there were a year ago, velocity has slowed, but pricing has not changed heavily. Owner-user marketplace, the prices stay really, really strong. And in the investment marketplace where they're buying cash flow, that has come down a little bit because cap rates, which is the first year's return to the investor, the cap rates have gone up, which means sales price come down. And they've gone up because interest rates have gone up. And so the borrowing power of an investor has to match, and there needs to be some spread in order to incentivize an investor to actually pay for that cash flow. So you have seen a little bit softening on the pricing when it comes to an investment sale, but owner-user has stayed relatively flat. And even, in some conditions, it's not like there's a lot of product out there to purchase. And so because of lack of supply, there's still a pretty strong demand on the owner-user marketplace to pick up a building. So there's when it comes to built out dental inventory, when it costs exponentially more to build an office right now with inflation and the cost of construction and the timelines of construction, all of those are accounted for in a price per square foot transaction to be able to buy a built out dental space and move. And so pricing stayed relatively strong.
Okay, so one thing to just add to this, as we talk about a transition, if you own your real estate, own your practice, those two things, that is a huge investment, and it's possible that you have somewhat of a concentration of your wealth between the practice real estate and the practice itself. So depending on what your net worth is, it could be it could be up to 50-75% of your net worth potentially, depending on the value of those two things. So it's important to be strategic as we go to look at an exit for your practice, to really consider some of the best options for your real estate needs as well. Rich and I are accustomed to working together to structure a plan, a path that gives you the best exit possible, because really the two things are going to be tied together throughout the sale process. And if something happens to you on the practice side, let's say your ability to produce goes away or something like that kind of ripples through. So the practice has to be strong enough to support the building in essence, and any future lease terms. So they all kind of work in concert, and that's something that we do extremely well is thinking through some of those different scenarios and crafting a plan that gives you the best exit possible.
Yeah. You really have two assets, the practice asset and the real estate asset, and it's important to maximize both of those assets when you look to sell, and build a plan around both of them. And that's easily done. We do a lot of it, and a lot of it could just be based on what your plan is. So do you want to lease that building after your exit? Do you want to sell the building at the time of exit? Do you want to sell the building 3-5 years down the road after exit? All of those scenarios, we can help model that and show kind of what an ideal exit looks like for you and your family. What an exciting time for you. You're starting a practice or looking to start a practice. I would say, isn't that the dream? Like, this is what you went to dental school to do, to be your own business, to be your own producer, and to exponentially grow wealth for your family in a field that you love. And so, I think the first thing that we talk to with dentists that are looking to buy their own practice or do a startup, most people run parallel tracks on that. They're looking at both practices and startups simultaneously. We're very comfortable in that scenario and very comfortable managing that process. What I would say is congratulations that you're looking. And number two is get educated. We're happy to sit down with you and take you through the step-by-step process. We have a defined process that we lead clients through, dentists through, from start to finish, from the identification of property all the way through the negotiation and securing the space, all the way through the build out of that space, and all the way through delivery of that space to you, to where you're starting your practice and rolling forward. We have a team that can help you set you up for success and maximize the opportunity to be able to mitigate any mistakes. There's lots of room for challenges here, and certainly they come with every startup and build. We would do our very best to help you mitigate those mistakes and those challenges. We'd love to work with you. Love to look forward to sitting down and mapping out a good plan and a strategy for where you want to start and what you're looking to do. Menlo Group Commercial Real Estate is a full-service commercial real estate brokerage firm. We do dental commercial real estate specific to anyone that wants to start up, anyone that wants to relocate, anyone that wants to renew, anyone that wants to expand, anyone that wants to contract, anyone that's looking to create a strategy to go to their landlord and or to go to a tenant to be able to change their lease structure, we help. And so I would just say, reach out. We are absolutely available to help you on your lease and any commercial real estate piece. If you own a piece of land and you're looking to develop it, if you own a building and you're looking to see what the best options, are.
We do practice sales, practice appraisals. We'll do something as simple as a range of value at no cost, or we can do a full comprehensive appraisal with demographic data and everything that you would expect to see in a comprehensive report.
Menlo Group also offers project management. Project management includes construction management, saves time and saves money in pulling together a full scope of services for any type of construction contracts. Menlo Group also helps property owners do property management. We have a full suite of property management services that include everything from associations, large associations, down to individual single tenant buildings to multi-tenant, very large retail, very large office buildings. So we absolutely can assist you in any type of property management, project management, commercial real estate, or business sales opportunities. So those are Menlo services. We're very grateful for the opportunity we have to represent you, the dental community, out and about in this awesome state and across the country.